Baby, I hope y'all are seated somewhere real comfortable because what just crawled out into daylight around D4vd, real name David Anthony Burke, is not a leak, it is a full detonation, and the fuse was lit by a stranger nobody saw coming. Honey, forget everything you thought you knew about this case, because a Discord ghost named Lamp just did what 3 months of press conferences could not do, and David is now boxed in by his own paper trail. I'm talking a receipt so damning that if the prosecution laminated it and slid it across the courtroom table, David's defense team would need oxygen. And here is the part that has my whole spirit shaking. Every single line on that receipt reads like David wrote his own indictment in cursive. Girl, this is not a slow burn anymore. This is a house on fire with the front door welded shut, and he is inside pacing. So let me set the table real quick before we go crawling through every crumb. What surfaced online is the actual United Airlines transaction from the flight that 14-year-old Celeste Hernandez allegedly took across the Atlantic to meet him in London, and it was posted by that same Discord account, Lamp, who first waved a red flag inside the private Discord server months ago. And baby, if the name Lamp sounds familiar, that is because Lamp is the exact same person who dropped that now infamous screenshot of David inside his Discord snapping on a fan who asked, and I quote, "Hey, who is this girl?" David's response was not confusion, it was not annoyance, it was, "You are a Fed." Now let that marinate. Because a grown man who lawyers up in his own Discord over a photo of a child is a grown man who already knew what he was hiding. Anywho, let's crack this receipt open like a case file, because there is not one detail on it that looks innocent. First of all, the ticket is a United Airlines booking, Celeste Hernandez traveling solo, on a route that funnels directly into London Heathrow. Investigators cross-referenced the transaction data, the flight numbers, the confirmation timestamps, and the routing metadata, and every fingerprint matches the trip prosecutors have been quietly building their case around. Celeste boarded that plane by herself. She was a minor. A whole child. Alone. And already the airline's own automated system flagged her ticket, because United sent out that boilerplate warning, "We've noticed that your child is booked on an upcoming flight, but the reservation does not include an adult age 18 years or older." Baby, when even the airline is going, "Ma'am, sir, whoever is buying this ticket, hello, this is a kid," that alone should have been the first parachute deployed. Instead, the ticket went through. Now here is where the alleged fingerprints start smoking up the whole thing. Look at the customer information panel. The shipping address on the transaction is registered to a name most of you have already heard whispered around this case, Victoria Mendez. Victoria Mendez, honey, is the exact same alleged alias that prosecutors say David used to place all those bizarre online orders that have been eating up every true crime timeline for weeks. The chainsaws. The inflatable pool. The industrial materials that read less like a shopping list and more like a scene from something no child should ever be near. And that same Victoria Mendez name is directly linked to David's Los Angeles residence. So we are not guessing. We are not connecting dots with a crayon. The dots are drawing themselves. But baby, the receipt gets wilder, because the billing address on this United Airlines transaction is not Victoria Mendez at all. It is listed under David Burke, with a Texas address attached. So put that in your pipe. Celeste's ticket is thanks Celeste for choosing United, which suggests Celeste, or someone using her name, had an account or created one for this trip. But the actual money on file, the actual billing profile, ties straight back to David. And the shipping side ties back to the alias Victoria Mendez, which itself ties back to his home. It is a 2-lane highway, and both lanes end at his front door. Every arrow points home. Every arrow. Now guys, listen, why on earth would a grown man use a female alias to buy a plane ticket for a 14-year-old girl he was allegedly grooming across an ocean? That is the question keeping investigators up at night, and it is the question that should be keeping every parent up too. Was David pretending to be Celeste's mother? A guardian? A chaperone? Because let me tell y'all right now, airlines do not just wave minors through international borders. That United warning I mentioned earlier is not decoration. When a child is booked to fly solo, they get flagged into what the airline calls unaccompanied minor services. That means a flight attendant is legally required to escort them, check in on them, hand them off at the gate to a verified adult with matching ID. Somebody had to be on the other end of that flight. Somebody had to sign for her like a package. And, honey, this next piece is what made the internet lose whatever composure it had left. Y'all remember not too long ago when somebody leaked his alleged YouTube search history and everybody was staring at their screens like, no ma'am, no sir, this cannot be real. One of the videos David was allegedly watching in the weeks leading up to Celeste's trip was, and I promise you I am not making this up, a tutorial titled something like, United States Airline Accompanying Minor Policy. David was studying the airline's unaccompanied minor rules. Like a student cramming for an exam he had already scheduled. So no, this is not a coincidence. This is not a random YouTube rabbit hole. This is a man researching how to move a child through an international airport without raising a single alarm. That is not curiosity, baby. That is planning. Ask yourself this. Why does a 21-year-old singer with an entire management team, an entire label, an entire tour operation need to personally learn the fine print of how airlines process unattended minors? He would not need to. Unless he was the one doing the processing. Unless he was the one writing the checks. Unless he was the one who needed the child to slip through without a paper trail matching his real name. And this is exactly why prosecutors have been alleging, for weeks now, that he basically arranged for Celeste to be transported across the country and even across international borders, which, if proven, is not just a state crime. Baby, that is federal territory. That is a whole different courtroom. Now let's take a beat and talk about Lamp, because Lamp is the wild card nobody had on their bingo card. Whoever this Discord user is, they are sitting on a receipts folder that reads like a treasure map. Lamp was inside David's server. Lamp was the one who called out Celeste's presence in that server months before the wider public even knew her name. Lamp is the one David lashed out at with that, "You are a Fed" line. And now Lamp is dropping evidence with the kind of surgical timing that makes you wonder if this person has been quietly preserving everything for months, waiting for the exact moment when the prosecution's case could stitch it in. Was Lamp a friend gone rogue? A concerned parent? A journalist in disguise? Or, and this one is a big or, was Lamp actually working with somebody in law enforcement the entire time? Because the sophistication of what Lamp is releasing does not scream random troll. It screams somebody with a plan. And honey, if I am being real with y'all, the fact that Lamp keeps surfacing new material at these precise intervals makes me think we are watching a controlled burn. Piece by piece. Just enough to keep the algorithm hungry and just enough to force David's legal team into a defensive scramble every single week. That is not chaotic. That is choreography. Let me pause here and hit y'all with a reality check on David's alleged double life. Because none of this comes out of nowhere. We already know that inside David's Discord there was a whole ecosystem of behavior that fans and moderators were quietly documenting. Screenshots of him interacting with young followers. Screenshots of coded language usage. Screenshots of him responding to inconvenient questions with hostility, deflection, and that ridiculous, "You are a Fed" line that has now become a meme but really should be a subpoena. When you stack that context on top of the Victoria Mendez alias, on top of the alleged unaccompanied minor searches, on top of the receipt with David's own name on the billing line, this stops looking like a series of unfortunate coincidences and starts looking like a pattern. And, y'all, patterns are what prosecutors love. Now let's talk logistics, because I know some of you are going to say, well, maybe it was somebody else using David's card. Baby, please. First, the same Texas address on that billing profile matches records tied to David's family. Second, the shipping alias, Victoria Mendez, matches the alleged pseudonym prosecutors have been building an entire second indictment around. Third, he himself, on tape, in his own Discord, treated the mere mention of Celeste like a live grenade. Coincidence does not stretch that far. Coincidence tapped out 3 chapters ago. And here is the moment where the whole story pivots, so buckle in. Because we have not even talked about the elephant that has been stomping around in the corner of this room, which is the alleged content prosecutors say they discovered on David's phone. If it is true that investigators recovered explicit material involving minors on his personal device, that is not just a California problem. That is a federal problem. That is FBI, that is Department of Justice, that is potentially cross-jurisdictional charges layered right on top of the state case. And when you pair that with an alleged interstate, and now international, transportation of a minor, we are staring down a scenario where David could end up facing not 1 trial but 2. State first. Then feds. 2 swings. 2 chances for the system to make sure this man does not see daylight again. And baby, if you want a preview of how that dual-track prosecution plays out, look no further than R. Kelly. R. Kelly caught state charges. R. Kelly caught federal charges. The feds waited, watched, built, and struck. And when they struck hard. There is a very real universe where the exact same choreography is being lined up right now for David, and every new receipt LAMP releases makes that universe more real, not less. Now guys, let me be honest with y'all for a second. Every time I sit down to break this case apart, I have to take a breath because at the center of all of it is a 14-year-old girl. Celeste. A whole child. A whole daughter. A whole sister. A whole friend. Not a receipt. Not a headline. Not a footnote in David's downfall. Her name deserves to sit at the top of every conversation, and the reason all of us are still here refreshing our timelines is not for the drama. It is because Celeste's story is being pieced together by strangers on the internet in a way that never should have been necessary. If the systems that were supposed to protect Celeste had worked, we would not need LAMP. We would not need Discord archaeologists. We would not need internet detectives cross-checking flight receipts against alleged aliases. But here we are, and we owe her the follow-through. Now, let's get back into the receipts, because I want to walk y'all through what happens next in a case like this, and it is way more nuanced than most true crime channels are telling you. When prosecutors receive third-party evidence like a leaked airline transaction, they cannot just print it out, tape it to a poster, and slide it into court. They have to authenticate it. That means subpoenaing United Airlines directly for the original, unedited transaction record. It means pulling David's alleged financial records and matching them to that billing profile. It means potentially interviewing whoever processed the ticket at United, whoever escorted Celeste through the airport under the alleged unaccompanied minor policy, and whoever met her at the other end. Every single one of those humans is a potential witness. Every single one of those humans is a potential domino. And once those dominoes start dropping, David's defense team is going to be doing more damage control than lawyering. And do not even get me started on the digital forensics side. If LAMP got their hands on this receipt, y'all can bet the FBI's Cyber Crimes Division has already been looking at that same footprint. Every login. Every device fingerprint. Every IP tied to that United account. Every payment method used. Baby, in 2026, you cannot buy a stick of gum online without leaving a data shadow. Buying an international plane ticket for a minor while allegedly using an alias? That data shadow is more like a data mural. Now, I know some of y'all are in the comments right now typing, innocent until proven guilty, and, yes, that is the standard. That is the law. That is how this country is supposed to work. But we are not the jury. We are the audience watching a public record unfold in real time, and the public record right now is looking real bleak for David. Because the receipt is not the only shoe that has dropped. And it will not be the last. LAMP has already signaled that more is coming. Prosecutors have already signaled that more is coming. Even his own former Discord community has been signaling for months that more is coming. This is a slow-motion avalanche, and David is at the bottom of the mountain without so much as a helmet. But wait, because here is where I have to slow down and get super serious with y'all. The preliminary hearing in this case is only days away. Days. Which means every piece of evidence surfacing right now, including this receipt, is landing at the most legally sensitive moment in the entire case. This is not a coincidence either. Whoever is dropping this material is doing it right before the courtroom lights come on, which means the pressure on David's legal team is about to become unbearable. They now have to explain, on the record, why a plane ticket with his billing address, his alleged alias, and his Texas connection ended up in a 14-year-old girl's hand on a flight to London. Good luck writing that opening statement, baby. And here is a thought that has been living rent-free in my head. What if the reason LAMP is releasing all of this now is because LAMP knows the state case alone will not be enough? What if LAMP is deliberately building a public evidentiary trail specifically designed to catch the attention of federal investigators? Because let me tell y'all, once the feds smell interstate transportation of a minor, once they smell alleged financial fraud through a female alias, once they smell digital evidence pulled from a device that already reportedly contained illegal material, they do not politely wait their turn. They move. Fast. And they move with a conviction rate that would make any defense attorney's hair fall out overnight. Now let's zoom out, because I want y'all to see the full architecture of what is being alleged here, not just this one receipt. Prosecutors are essentially painting a portrait of a young celebrity who allegedly used his platform, his money, his aliases, and his access to travel and technology to systematically groom and traffic a child across state and international lines. If that framing holds up in court, David is not just facing a murder-adjacent case. He is facing a trafficking case. He is facing potential federal enhancements. He is facing a Rolodex of charges so long it needs its own binder. And every single one of those charges is going to be argued in front of jurors who have already seen the Discord screenshots, the alleged search history, the alleged alias, and now the alleged flight receipt with his own name printed on it in black and white. Baby, this is why the internet has not been able to look away. This case is not just a celebrity scandal. It is a case study in how modern predators allegedly weaponize fandom, digital platforms, aliases, and airline systems to move children in plain sight. And it is a case study in how a single anonymous account, one Discord user with a screen name as harmless as Lamp, can unravel a defense strategy that celebrity money bought and paid for. Now, before I let y'all go, I have to plant a flag right here, because this next part is what nobody else is talking about. If, and I do mean if, the FBI officially opens a parallel federal investigation on top of the state case, David's timeline in the public eye is about to get exponentially longer. Federal cases move at their own pace, with their own grand juries, their own indictments, their own trial calendars. Which means even after the state trial finishes, he could be walking straight from one courtroom into another. 2 trials. 2 juries. 2 sets of receipts. And Lamp, honey, may just be getting started. Now, let me pull y'all into one more corner of this before we wrap, because there is a layer of this receipt that I don't think enough people have chewed on yet, and it is the piece that keeps me pacing at 3 a.m. Look at how deliberate the alleged setup is. It is not one alias. It is a whole scaffolding. You have Victoria Mendez as the shipping name. You have his real name, David Burke, as the billing name. You have Celeste's name attached to the ticket itself. 3 identities, 1 transaction, 1 child in the middle. Baby, that is not sloppy. That is compartmentalization. That is how professionals move things they do not want traced, and it is horrifying to see it allegedly deployed on a minor's plane ticket. If a defense attorney tries to sell a jury on the idea that this was an innocent mix-up, that jury is going to laugh them out of the box. Because innocent mix-ups do not include a female alias linked to a suspect's own home address showing up on the shipping line of a 14-year-old girl's international flight. And here is another thing I keep circling back to, because it might be the sneakiest tell in the entire document. That polite little line on the receipt, "Thanks Celeste for choosing United," is the airline's automated appreciation message, which means the account tied to that ticket had Celeste's name registered on it. So somebody, at some point, set up an account or a profile using Celeste's identity. Was it Celeste herself, walked through it by him over voice chat? Was it him acting on her behalf? Was it him using her identity entirely? That is a question a forensic tech investigator can answer in about 20 minutes with a subpoena to United. And the moment they get that answer, another entire chapter of alleged charges opens up. Identity misuse. Wire fraud. Interstate deception involving a minor. The buffet just keeps growing, honey. And I want to say this too, because it matters. Every single time a case like this breaks open, there is a wave of internet sleuths who mean well but sometimes cross lines that hurt the very prosecution they are cheering for. So let me be crystal clear on this. If you are watching this, please do not go trying to contact Lamp. Please do not go harassing former Discord moderators. Please do not go doxing anyone whose name has ended up adjacent to this story. Because if there is even a whiff of interference from the online crowd, the defense will try to use it to poison the jury pool. Let the prosecutors work. Let the alleged whistleblowers protect themselves. And let the paper trail speak, because right now the paper trail is louder than any tweet. And guys, one more piece I have to name out loud, because Lamp's methodology is genuinely fascinating and, honestly, a little chilling. Whoever is behind that account is not just dropping raw screenshots and running. Lamp is annotating context. Lamp is releasing material at intervals that keep the pressure on the suspect without overwhelming the story. Lamp is naming other Discord users who witnessed key exchanges, which means Lamp is essentially handing prosecutors a witness list wrapped in a bow. If this person ever chooses to unmask themselves, they will have written one of the most important true crime whistleblower stories of the decade. And if they never unmask themselves, they will still have permanently rewritten how digital evidence flows from private servers to public courtrooms in a celebrity case. So let me ask you guys the questions I have been asking myself all night. Do you think LAMP is a lone whistleblower, a group of insiders working under one screen name, or a plant with law enforcement backing? Do you think the federal government is about to get involved, or will the state case swallow the entire prosecution? And what do you think prosecutors reveal next, because if this receipt is what surfaces days before the preliminary hearing, imagine what they are holding back for opening statements. Drop those thoughts in the comments below, because I want to read every single one of them, and I promise you I read them all. And baby, do not go anywhere, because the next receipt is already loading. LAMP is not done. The prosecution is not done. And this story is only getting louder from here. So stay locked in, keep your notifications on, and I will see y'all back here the moment the next piece drops, because when it does, we are going to break it down line by line, name by name, alias by alias, until this whole thing is stripped down to the truth. Celeste deserves that. Her family deserves that. And, honey, so do you. Because make no mistake, this case is going to reshape how celebrity fandom is regulated, how Discord servers are moderated, how airlines vet unaccompanied minors, and how prosecutors handle digital evidence pulled from anonymous whistleblowers. David's name is going to be a case study in law schools 10 years from now, and Celeste's name is going to be the reason a lot of policies get rewritten. That is the weight of this. That is why every receipt matters. And that is why we owe it to her to keep watching, keep asking, and keep refusing to let this story get buried under the next viral distraction. So share this if it moved you, comment your theories below, and I will be right back here the moment LAMP lights the next fuse, because y'all already know I will.